Like I did one with Spencer, right? And Nefta was there, and like he was barking during some of it and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't care. It's your dog. Like we're having a podcast with your dog in your lap. Like that's okay. That's kind of like the whole point, is to make you feel comfortable and to have it just be like we were having a conversation earlier. I mean, that's why I'd rather do it here on the floor, you know, just talk like we were just talking.
I love that.
Alrighty. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Real Successful Podcast. This week, we have a very special guest. She has been practicing and teaching yoga in San Diego for almost 15 years. She has her 500-hour certificate that she received under the guidance of the world-renowned Rolf Gates. She is a master of patterns and body movement, a teacher of collegiate and professional athletes. She's an intentional and supportive doula, a student for life, committed authentically to the exploration of love in every part of life. She is a true spiritual force in my life and a once-in-a-lifetime friend. Please welcome Jenn Richardson.
That was the sweetest, kindest introduction I've ever heard.
Well, I mean, you know, got to try and do you justice, do our friendship justice. We've known each other for a long time.
For a very long time. You've taken hundreds of hours of my yoga class.
Yeah. Not a lot of people can say that.
No.
Yeah, I feel fortunate to be able to say that. I mean, some of those were in, interesting environments, that's for sure.
It's always the same environment. That's what's so interesting about it. Locker room floor of USD.
Yeah, the carpet and under the blue light and everything like that. But you're not from San Diego. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Southern Virginia in a really small town in the Appalachian Mountains, a place called Giles County, which is near Virginia Tech, so near Hokie country.
Hokie Nation, yeah.
Yeah.
How much different is that environment than out here in San Diego?
Well, the small town that I actually grew up in called Whitegate, this little community, had half Amish people.
Okay. So very different, yeah. Which one, and maybe it's not so black and white, but does one feel more like it speaks to you, one feel more like home than the other? I mean, obviously your family's still back there, but just as far as like environment wise.
Well, I was there for 19 years and I've been here for 15 years. So I'm almost at that place of balance, which I'm curiously approaching and wondering how that'll feel. But the idea of home for me hasn't always, as of 19 and onward, it became an internal quest because I left so young and so abruptly and never looked back. And being here in San Diego, I've moved probably like a lot of us 15 times once a year.
Yeah.
So I've tried really hard to take on that turtle energy and be home wherever I am. But home has been a little bit convoluted for me in my heart, which is beautiful because it's given me a lot to work on.
Yeah.
But here's home.
what made you move out here at such a young age?
Well, I guess I struggled a little bit in my youth. I have a wonderful family and they're kind and loving people and did everything they possibly could for me. But I did not fit in at all, which is more than okay now. But I struggled with the emotional tornadoes that is me and has been me in my inner world when I live very much from a place from, conditioning and from fear and not from the front of my brain. So I struggled a lot when I was 15, like a lot of people in our generation, suicide attempt, hospitalized for 2 weeks, went through that, which was great because I saw so much that frightened me to my core and saw different paths that I could travel. And it became more and more intentional for me to figure out who I am, what I'm about, what my calling is. So it set me on the path, but man, oh man, like what a path. Yeah. So at 19, I was still trying to run away from myself, trying to run away from anybody telling me what to do. I'm a very rebellious person by nature, which has served me well. But again, it's been an interesting journey, fraught with a lot of peril and trials and tribulations. But on the other hand, so much bliss and joy and insight and creativity. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
But I was running away from myself.
Okay. And you found your way out here and you found yoga?
I did. I was going to Miramar College, and I did, JUCO for 10 years and didn't pay $1, which I'm so thankful for, and studied everything from English to anthropology. And I would leave campus in Miramar and go around the block every single day, and there was Bikram School of Yoga. And so, like a lot of us, because it was just a storm in the world, carpet yoga, 105 degrees, the whole thing. But that was the first time that I ever was in my body and simultaneously outside of and looking at my body and having a body experience, because I wasn't an athlete whatsoever. I was in a much different state. I read and rode and long school bus rides, an hour both ways. Like, what the hell else are you going to do? You're going to read books. So I wrote and read a whole lot, and never went toward athleticism, not because I wasn't athletic, but no one ever showed me that I was an athletic person at all.
No one ever said, hey, you should try and play this.
Yeah. Now it's so funny because I've been in the world of athletics for half of my life.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I tell people all the time that I'm the most unathletic person you'll ever meet, because I'm like a coach. I am a coach. I understand movements and I feel their embodiment, and I can feel what a baseball player feels in my own way, of course. And I say that humbly and with reverence.
Yeah.
But I'm never gonna be that sort of athlete, which is fine.
How did you work it to where you were able to take all those classes for free at Miramar?
It was called a Board of Governors waiver fee, and so I was on my own as an independent person. So I was young, not making much money, so I got to go to school for free.
That's so cool.
Yeah, the Board of Governors waiver fee. It was so easy back then. You just fill out a piece of paper, what your income was. They qualify you right then and there, and tuition's waived.
And you just took whatever classes kind of interest you and all that sort of stuff.
For like 10 years, and became friends with the professors still to this day. Jim Wenzel is a wonderful English teacher. Took such a liking to me.
Yeah.
Been a friend.
That's really cool, actually. That's like such a cool experience that, like, I mean, is that you can't, I doubt that's still a thing nowadays, is it?
No, I doubt it. I don't know. I hope it is.
Yeah.
I feel so fortunate for my education. I remember writing a really beautiful piece on Walt Whitman and Thoreau being the first hippies and yogis in the United States. And, Emerson, he read the Bhagavad Gita, and not a lot of people know that. But because I had the education that I did, and I got to cross-reference it with what my dharma was, I'm so fortunate that I found my calling at such a young age. I remember being 5 years old, and we had this beautiful preacher woman. Her name was Margaret, and she had like slick back blonde hair and wore these red pumps to a tiny little country church in Southern Virginia.
Yeah.
And she would just walk in like a storm, so powerful. And at 5, I said aloud and declared, and that's a big part of who I am. I declared, I'm going to be a preacher like Margaret. And so then my dad always told me too that we would work out together as a little kid. We'd do like Guillermo or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He would do these workouts on the beach, videotapes. So my dad's always popping in these videotapes. Waylani, she would do mindfulness and yoga, and I would work out with my dad, which was so sweet. So maybe someone was trying to teach me a little bit, of course my dad, that's how dads are.
Yeah.
But he told me, you need to be a fitness instructor. You need to be like that. You need to be on videotapes and stuff. So my dad planted this seed in my mind, and then I had planted the seed of being a preacher, and it kind of was born through being a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to preach, but I am sharing a message.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, it is a form of preaching in its own way. 100%.
Comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
To make sure you really
to be in front of to be up in front of a class, and you are the guiding force. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's however many people. I mean, I'm sure you've taught classes 50 to 100, right? Even bigger maybe.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all eyes on you to guide them. I mean, that's like preaching the message, and what comes out of you in turn affects them directly. That's a lot of power.
It's a lot of power and responsibility. I remember a couple years into teaching, I remember exactly where I was standing. I remember the way my body was turned, and I said to the class, past doesn't matter, future doesn't exist, all you have is now. And I stopped and was like, fuck, I have never had my own original thought. My first original thought is that I've never had my own original thought. And from that moment on, I stopped regurgitating. I stopped doing the scripted thing. And that's when I really started to set out on my own path. And I stopped believing and talking about everything and anything and just waited to see what truths would appear, what I knew was truth, universal truth, and then approached my teaching and my life from that place.
Well, and we were talking earlier, and this kind of goes back to you going to college and taking all those classes. Is we were talking about the whole certification thing, or how, it's, you have to go to this course and you need this accreditation, you need this certification to teach and to regurgitate, certain information. So like you're approved, to teach something. And we were talking and I was saying about how like I hate that idea of that, and how a lot of the world's getting back to apprenticeship and learning from people. And that's kind of what you're saying, right? Is like how important it is not to just say that you go and you get this thing and you're able to repeat what they taught you. It's finding what's yours uniquely and finding like a way to teach people, right?
Definitely. I agree 100%. And, we as yoga teachers have subscribed to Yoga Alliance for a really long time and, get the yoga studio, i.e. the school accredited, and have the teachers have the accreditation, and they're changing their policies so that, every teacher needs to be 500 hours experienced yoga teacher. But the thing is, my 500 hour with Rolf Gates, who wrote Meditations from the Mat, which is one of the most revered and popular books of my generation of yoga teachers, because it was a distance program. We studied for 2 years together. I spoke to him once a month on Skype. He gave me books to read, assignments to do, follow up. Like, he was there for me in every way, shape, and form. I wasn't cheated because it was a distance program. It was better because I got to be with him for 2 years, whereas other programs are a few months. But Yoga Alliance doesn't recognize Rolf Gates' distance program. So that knocks me out of leading teacher training, and it's just so silly. So then you try to do the follow-up thing that's like, hey, I've been a part of certifying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in San Diego. I've been a part of it, and I've led with my whole heart. But now, because of this and that and rules and money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I guess what they're trying to do at the end of the day, but sorry, when I uploaded the curriculum that would fit Yoga Alliance's recommendations, or their requirements, they say, okay, send us a check, we'll send you a sticker, and that's the end of that relationship. It's just a racket. It's kind of bullshit.
Transactional.
And maybe other studio owners or other teachers, they think it's better because there's some sort of process, and I get that processes and systems can be helpful, but at the end of the day, I could care less if David Weck goes through NASM or any other ACE sort of coaching personal training certification. I want to learn from Weck. I don't care about any sort of certification or what is regulated or not. I want to learn from him, the person. And I know that'll make me a better teacher and human being. And I don't care about the certification. I don't need it. I want to apprentice under him. I want to study with him.
Yeah.
It all comes back to personal practice too, doesn't it? It's like, do you want the certification so you can go out and make money? All right, I get that. You're trying to make a livelihood off of this thing. But when you don't care about that and you're looking for the apprenticeship and you're looking for your truth and your path and your way, then who gives a fuck about?
Oh, we're back. What was I talking about?
Certifications, apprenticeship, studying with people.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say, like, someone who's like new and wants to be an instructor or part of the world, and it's like should I get certifications here or there, or who should I get it from? And the whole money thing. It's like you have to believe, right, that if you approach it from a standpoint that you're talking about, where you find someone that you want to learn under, right? So you find like your own voice and what makes sense for you, then it's going to work out. The money part will work out. The job will work out, right? I mean, you have to.
I agree with that for sure. Because you're on your path.
Yeah.
It's going to work one way or another.
Well, and what was that thing you told me earlier? You're on time, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something that I don't know if I've heard it before, but when you said it earlier, I was like, wow, like that's like, that one's going to make me think about it for a couple days. Like, I'm going to think about that for a while.
I hadn't really thought about that much either until I listened to that great podcast with Oprah and Paulo Coelho, and he was talking about, because it was recently the 25-year anniversary of The Alchemist, and he was sharing with her his journey, which was it didn't sell at all, and for 25 years it sat dormant, and then all of a sudden, Divine Timing, it's one of the most popular books in the entire world. And it showed up on time in people's lives when they needed it the most. It became a spiritual revolution for a lot of people and a huge paradigm shift for a whole culture, for millions and millions of people. I think it's one of the most translated books in the world.
Yeah.
And you think about Eckhart Tolle, if he came out with his message, 50 years ago, it was ahead of his time, there's a very good chance it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful as it's landing in the hearts of people now. Mm-hmm. And you had brought up Jay Shetty being a monk, and he's really starting to stand out as a monk and someone that's going out into the world like, hey, I've got this key. It's called meditation, and I experienced it. And there's all these people that have been steeped in this practice for a long time. And now those are the very people that pushed him and said, go share this with the world. Like, you're not meant to sit here and be more reclusive and go inside. Take all of that work you did and share it as much as you can. And I know more and more people will follow.
Yeah, I think that's something that's so hard for me personally, and I'm sure there's people out there where it's also hard for them, where so much of our life is dictated by schedule and by timing, and you go to college and you're there for 4 to 5 years, and then you get a job and you work that for 5 years until you upgrade your job to a new job, right? And it's like everything is supposed to be happening at a certain time, and for me, sometimes I feel like I'm behind, or other people feel like they're lost or behind because they're not doing things that arbitrarily have been set for them that they're supposed to have accomplished by now. You know, and I don't know, that's something that's so hard. And when you said that, it kind of I mean, it doesn't fix the way I feel, but it definitely, like, in the moment shifted it. I was like, yeah, you know, it's just okay. I mean, I'm doing my thing until, you know, the time comes when time shifts and I'm on time. I'm not late. I'm not early. That's something that's hard. Like, how about, here's a good question. How do you reconcile that? How does that make sense for you on a daily basis?
I have a lot to say about that, actually, because I think working with the athletes for the last 10 years and just having been around people that are younger than me, it just so happens that way. And I'm just kind of like usually 10 years out from people. You know, I'm 34, gone through 2 divorces, I'm proud to say, and they're 2 very successful relationships. And I'm proud of the growth that we experienced, that I experienced going through them. I've had a child. I've gone through so much. The only job I've ever known, though, is teaching yoga. So that's pretty powerful. Yeah. But I empathize, and I see this a lot with people more so in your generation. It feels like time has definitely has sped up and you guys are trying so hard to reach this level of mastery, and you're pouring so much into your podcast work, into your athleticism, into music if that's your jam, jiu-jitsu if that's your jam, yoga if that's your jam. Like, everybody right now that I see around me is trying so hard to pour themselves and get those hours racked up under their belt so they can get to that, Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour number, to feel like, damn, I've got something on my belt, under my belt. But what I'll say to that is what I say to all the other people. You got to Wayne Dyer that shit. You are a master when it comes to baseball and athleticism. You have so many hours that you have spent, the hours that you've put into your education and study, the hours that you've now put into your podcast work. Even though it's new, you have put so much into it already. And it feels like a little bit of a whirlwind right now, and it's because our brains are negatively biased. That's just how they are. They're negatively biased. You got really hurt in a relationship, so don't get back in a relationship. Just stay single and be on your own. That's the safer bet. But the spiritual body says, coyote it. You got to walk toward it. You have to walk toward what you're afraid of, because that's how you're going to grow. Step toward it. So instead of focusing so much on like, damn, there's so many people in my lane as influencers, as fitness professionals that are so much further along than I am, stop. Switch the mind perspective completely. Look how much you have done. Celebrate the level of mastery that you have, because you are just going to attract all of those experiences and people and situations at that same vibration. If it's like, God, I'm not at that level. I'm not where I want to be. I want something other than what I have. You're just drawing that all into the mirror of reflection. Instead, celebrate how far you've come, all that you've done. And then all of a sudden, these opportunities will come your way. And, you are on time, but the universe is indifferent. And I don't think the universe really, source energy really cares that much at all. It's you have to take responsibility for your own inner universe, work with it, nourish it, nurse it, adopt your mindset to look toward what you have done, what you are really good at, where you have stepped into your own discipline. And the universe is like, okay, yeah, well, this mirrors that really well, so I'm gonna send this on over to mirror that frequency and vibration. It doesn't care. It's not, I think. It's not trying to show you anything or prove to you anything or teach you any sort of lesson or give you any sort of blessing. You yourself are looking for those things, of course. Do you believe in a universe that is mind before matter? There was conscious thought and then there was manifestation. Or do you believe in a universe that is matter? There was stuff and then there was conscious thought. We all know that it's mind before matter. There was conscious thought and then this, then you. Yeah. So you create your own reality, and you're doing a great job at that.
That's really interesting. Because oftentimes you do, and whether you believe it or not, you say, well, it's the universe sending me a sign, or this is a lesson. But from what I'm understanding is it's more like you're showing yourself your signs, based on what you're attracting and rejecting, based on your mind and your mindset and what you're projecting out there. You're giving yourself the lessons, in a sense. It's not some universe telling you, oh, well, here it is. It's like, no, like that was yourself, right?
That was yourself. And what I'll say to that too is I've been really fortunate to hang out in some really amazing, powerful circles with mediums, with psychics, like really powerful people. This one woman, Kim, we go around the way. She says a prayer before she speaks to every single person. Guides, angels, masters, ascended masters. If there's a message that I can share with Colton, please use me as a vessel. Amen. Immediately she gets this download. She's like, okay, so what they're telling me, I'm hearing the Beatles song, Let It Be. What I'm hearing right now, they're telling me that you just need to freeze because you don't have all of the pieces to the puzzle yet. Does that make sense? Or what they're telling me is just hold the vision, keep holding the vision. When that very morning I was like, fuck this. I'm, for the first time in my life, I'm going to admit defeat, and I'm going to be like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm going to let go of this vision. It's too big. It's too lofty. And I'm not as relentless as I thought I was. And then by that evening, there's a psychic that's like, do you know, or does it make sense when they say, keep holding the vision? And then I burst into laughter and tears.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's something to be said for like a whole spirit team and angels and guides and masters and ascended rather masters that are on your half. Like, hey, Colton, go down to San Diego, like do that podcast, you know, like it's worth your time. It's worth your effort. Go do this thing. You know, I don't know what that is, but I think in the grander sense, you know, like the grander sense, the universe is like, yeah, I'm going to give you whatever you want. Maybe it's holding its breath a little bit when you get to that crossroads and it wants you to pick the one that's a little bit more challenging. Come on, you can do it. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, fuck it, they're going to do what they want, you know, kind of. But I don't know. But I truly believe that overall, the overarching energy of the universe that you can't even begin to conceptualize it's indifferent. But there's a team around us, which is our own manifestation of light beings and things like that.
I love that.
I get to hang out with cool people.
I know, seriously.
I'm
well,
so
and
lucky.
you do. And that's actually kind of a nice little transition. Is another thing we were talking about earlier is you said after you had River, after you gave birth, everything changed, right? You became a different person that you couldn't possibly go back to the old version of you. And I kind of want you to talk or elaborate a little bit more on that, like transition or what that even means to you.
Totally. And I would love to. Yeah, I've done a lot of reflection. I've done so much analyzing and trying to understand who I was and who I am now. And I realized pre-River, I was definitely just operating from my limbic system. I was definitely operating from a place of conditioning. I was drawing in experiences and people and places that mirrored that of my childhood. And then, you know, I'd go home, I'd teach 4 classes a day and I would be tired, which now it's really funny. When I teach, I never get tired. I could teach 3 or 4 classes a day and I don't get tired because I'm so aligned with what I'm doing and it energizes me so much. I don't get tired. When I do body work, I do get more tired. So I do need to look at that and maybe see where there's an imbalance and why it isn't giving me energy. Some sessions do, some don't. There's a whole other slew of things we could tap into. But I would come home, I'd be tired, I'd veg out, I would do the things that most people do, which is the work, entertainment, sleep kind of thing, even though I was teaching and spending part of my life in this more self-study way. But then after I got pregnant with River, and when I birthed River, it was such a powerful spiritual experience that I feel very strongly that there was such a powerful production of DMT in my brain. And I know that he felt it too. And I was really fortunate to do a natural childbirth in a warm hot water tub, just as the sun was rising in the sky at 5:14 a.m. My son, who's just straight Leo fire, came into the world and he lit a fire in me that's so incredibly powerful. But because I was really fortunate and did not have any drugs and I labored at home, and I would go back and forth between, like, you know, hip opening child's pose, tabletop thing. I stood up on my knees naked at one point. I saw myself in this long mirror and it struck me and almost frightened me because I saw myself, but I saw my true self. I saw her, she saw me. At that point, that's when I connected really for the first time with the baby and felt, I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, and I felt this really powerful connection. Next thing you know, I'm like trying to push him out in the car. So like drove up 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever in the morning, got to Encinitas. And after I birthed to him, the chemical response was utterly so profound, and I found myself with a huge aversion to, you know, television screens, couldn't do it, turn it off. I had all of that just completely left my life. And the next couple of years, it got it was wonderful, but it got hard because I felt lost.
Yeah.
I felt scared. I felt lost. I felt alone. But I was able to recognize it was a spiritual awakening. It was an energetic shift. Whoever I was no more, and someone else took my place that was operating at a completely different vibration. And I needed to get out of the relationship. And, my significant other at the time, his father, he's supportive. It was hard for him, but he was supportive. But I needed to be on my own. I needed to be an autonomous person. I needed to set my world up in a completely different way where I could play piano naked at 2 a.m. and, like ecstatically dance and read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or at least a few pages here and there, But I needed to step into actually living my life. And it's funny because during that time, this energetic shift, I'm leading yoga teacher training, and I stand behind the programs that I have led. I'm really proud of what's come out of that. But what I always focused on mostly was conscious death, embracing life. So we would come together in teacher training and diving into what it means to consciously die.
Yeah.
We would practice dying, little slips of paper. You write down people, you write down life goals. Like, I really want to go to Myanmar and drink a Burmese tea, material possessions, because that's part of the human experience, that, your dad's jacket that you cherish and love.
Yeah.
And one at a time, you as you are right now, Colton, at this age, you get sick, People stop calling because they don't know what to say. Your job's like, don't worry about it, like, just get better. Drop a card. Time goes on. The prognosis isn't good. Now you're just starting to cope with your end-of-life care. Drop a card. So now everybody's dropping these cards.
Yeah.
And they're sobbing and they're practicing dying. And then by the end of it, and the next day, it's like, whoa, the sky is blue. And I haven't heard a bird or paid attention to a bird in I don't know how long. And God knows I haven't stopped and smelled any flowers or gone to Balboa Park and looked at the rose garden and just wafted in those incredible God-given scents.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this newfound appreciation for life just started showing up within me and within my students, because we're all getting real talk and talking about, if you stay in this relationship your whole life, are you going to regret it? If you stay in this job for another 2 years, 2 days, are you going to regret it? What have you not said that you need to say that could potentially weigh on your heart and pull your vibration down when you're trying to tap into enlightenment at the end of your life?
Yeah.
So we dove so headstrong into that as a topic of conversation and as an intention, consciously dying. I did hospice work. I'm just really interested in the dying process. It all comes back to the crux of it is why we suffer. There's 5 reasons why we suffer. There's 3 things to do about it. Athletes do those 3 things every single day: self-study, discipline, surrender to something bigger than you are. So it was like, oh, wow, there's a system. There's something in place that can reverse all of this suffering. And when you start looking at why do I suffer and what do I do about it, it changes your life. It changed my life, I should say. It utterly changed my life.
What are the 5 things?
The 5 things are egoism. And we can get into a whole thing about egoism, right? Because, like, first of all, let's honor and celebrate and appreciate our ego. Our ego is a huge part of our human experience.
Yeah.
There's no reason that, you take enough psilocybin or LSD or whatever and you have an ego death. That's beautiful, but your ego will be reborn in a more conscious way, and that's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But our ego should be celebrated and appreciated. I think our wants and desires should be acknowledged, celebrated, and appreciated. And then listen to the quiet voice of your soul that says, I want to be in this relationship. I want to be an influencer. I want spiritual, or rather financial, autonomy and freedom. I need to be healthy.
Yeah.
I surrender to whatever life has in store, or, we could go all into that. But egoism, spiritual ignorance, but I think a softer way of putting that is spiritual forgetfulness. We forget, you forget that your animal body goes to sleep, and then you go into the dream world and the ethereal space where there are lots of messages being offered or lots of processing being offered. But anyway, so we forget about our spiritual selves, clinging, grasping, attachment, aversion, clinging, grasping, that's the same as attachment. And then aversion, it's like, I don't want to fucking deal with this, so I'm going to go monk myself. And, you can do it with yoga all the time. I'm just going to take 3 yoga classes and just kind of like hide from all of my shit instead of facing it. You could dive into all sorts of ways that, aversion shows up.
And we avoid things.
I remember I walked in the door as a young person in my early 20s, and I would turn the TV on before I would turn the light on because I didn't want to be alone. And the idea of no voices, no human being in the house with me, that was such a lonely feeling that I did not know how to embrace. I did not know how to be alone. I didn't know how to appreciate being alone. And then, I kind of paid for it now at 34 with a kid. It's like, fuck, I have to be alone so that I can die well. So that I can be okay with me at the end of my life, because I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm about. I don't know what my calling is. That's the point I got to. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel a lot more clarity, a lot more declaration. And then the last one is it's Abhina Visa. It's clinging to life.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is a normal inherent instinctual thing.
Survive.
Yeah, you don't step off the side of the road because you want to live. God damn it! Like I want to live and I want my life to mean something. But can you let go when the time truly comes? We're all working toward that.
Yeah, and that's something that I even think about a lot, is because it's something in our lives that is so absolute, right? Like there's so many uncontrollable, weird things that are going to happen to us that we have no control over, but there is one thing that we know for sure that is going to happen, and that's that everyone's going to die, is that your life comes to an end at a certain point.
Your animal body dies for sure.
Yeah.
Your animal body dies, but we know, and if you sit with ayahuasca even one time, you know that you are birthless and deathless, that you are never born and you will never die, and that you live on always and forever. But yeah, the animal body dies.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of us, even myself at times included, because I'm terrible at this, is you spend a lot of your life avoiding that reality. It's, there's no acceptance of it, so then it's just like running the race just to get to the end when the end is just over. And it's like, well, what did I do during that race that was worth anything to like make the end worth it, to make myself comfortable with letting go at the end, right? And I feel like that's
you have to live your most authentic life. You have to be incredibly radically accepting of yourself and others. And if you're in a relationship that's holding you back from your growth, or it makes you feel stagnant, well, then get the fuck out. The Dalai Lama is like, why are you going to be upset? Is it fixable? Yeah, it's all fixable. Then what's there to be upset about? But I agree. And when I was younger, when I was first teaching, I went to someone that I thought of as a superior in terms of being a yoga teacher. And I said, we take Shavasana, corpse pose, the dying pose at the end of the class, but nobody is talking about it. There's no education around it. Why? She said, well, I think people come to yoga to escape that. I'm like, hold the fuck up. Escapism is suffering. That's kind of 101. So I'm like, this doesn't make sense, and I'm concerned. So to better understand, I started working with hospice, and I had a patient, and I sat with her for 1.5 years, and she had very advanced, 10 years in, Alzheimer's. Man, what a horrible disease.
Yeah, my God.
What a horrible disease. I would go to her house in the morning. I would help her get with her husband. I would help her get out of bed. She did not know who we were. She would become 80 pounds in her 60s, incredibly aggressive, won't bite, kick, punch, scratch. I was so heartbroken for her. She's trying to defend her life. She feels that someone is taking off her clothes and hurting her, and she doesn't know that it's her husband and a hospice volunteer. I mean, it was agonizing. And there was many days where I thought, I can't do this anymore. Why am I going to go hang out in the land of the dying when I am alive? And I have people that want to celebrate and go be at the beach, but I would go, and inevitably on those days that I didn't want to go, she would pick up my hand, stroke it, kiss it, say something kind, disappear back into her disease.
Yeah.
Her husband came out once and he had this big picture of her. It's like a 1970s bathing suit, and she made it in National Geographic. She was a diver.
Wow.
Yeah. And she had this beautiful picture with the goggles and the, the gear and everything, and she's shining a flashlight on this cool looking fish. And I'm like, Patty, what was that like? And she lifted up out of her disease, and she said it was the most wonderful feeling in the whole world, and just sank right back into her disease. And then I would tell her husband, like, let's take her to the beach. That she's going to feel that. No, she won't. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't remember anything.
Golly.
So from that point, I'm like, man, I feel really called to create in my latter years. Maybe my parents have this big Victorian farmhouse that I assume will be inherited to my sister and I, and have these ideas of grandeur. What if I created a dying home for my friends when we get to that age, a place where you can go out in the country, I'll help, we'll find LSD, we'll do ayahuasca, we'll do psilocybin as you're dying, like Ram Dass, Timothy Leary, that shit, and die the way we want, not embalm, dig a hole, burn and scatter in the Appalachian winds, but I want to die the way I lived. I want to die with purpose. I pray that for all of my friends and family, that they find a lot of enlightenment, they find a lot of healing, they find a lot of insight and creativity in their dying process. I mean, Ram Dass and Timothy Leary, they're the most inspirational people in the whole world to me. I mean, they spent their whole lives thinking about and planning for and preparing for dying, for this epic, beautiful, powerful goal of dying. And now they are both transitioned and dead. Ram Dass just transitioned. And I know, we were just talking about it. It rained in Maui that day. It was raining in San Diego. And I know that the whole world in their own way looked up in the sky after the rain and saw rainbows. And that's Ram Dass shining down. I mean, Tibetan Book of the Dead talks about rainbow bodies returning, highly realized people returning to the light, returning to the light of a rainbow. What a wonderful goal. I told my kid, when you die, we talk about dying all the time. I said, you should turn into a rainbow. And he's like, okay.
He's like, okay.
Okay.
I promise.
Just imagine the energy of a rainbow, just looking down and seeing people's eyes and hearts and arms and hands lifted up. I mean, how many things do you really stop and you're like, a rainbow, and your arms come up in the air?
That's a really good point. Right? Every time there's a rainbow, people like almost stop in their tracks. Or they're like, I hope there's a rainbow after the rain, It's like one of those things that's so mesmerizing, and it's so like just awe.
And that's the secret to life, isn't it? And the secret to just life. I won't say anything about yoga, but life. But live from a state of constant awe and wonderment. Want happiness, love, joy, health, and success more for other people than you want it for yourself.
Yeah.
That's what Wayne Dyer talks about. And I've said that to a few people now, and they're like, no, you need to want it for yourself. I do, but I want it more for you. And in that way, we raise each other up. Yes, my darling. Bring it to me. It's funny how people say, like, yoga's not all about rainbows and butterflies. Sorry to do that, like, mocking voice. But I used to say that so I can say it, because I'm like, what is this? We need to talk about death and dying. It's not rainbows and butterflies. Yeah. Well, butterflies are the most transformational. I mean, think of that rainbows epic struggle of trying to break out of the cocoon. They experience death and transformation. And then we're talking about rainbows, going back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The whole point is to be a rainbow.
I know. That's so funny. Where it's like, actually, death is about butterflies and rainbows.
It truly, truly is. We kind of missed the point on that one. There you go. Then just turn the volume up whenever you get back in your room. Thank you, baby. Isn't it funny how all of the cliches there's so much truth in cliches? Ignorance is bliss. Like, God damn it, I wish I didn't know. There's a little part of you that's like, I wish I didn't know, because now you got to burn the whole thing down and see what will grow back.
Yeah, and you're like, and then you start questioning other things. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday, because I wrote something, to the extent that, perception is reality, and I mean, that's it. It's like sometimes when your perception or when your paradigm is completely shifted, it almost is like a complete like death. You're like, okay, well, what else is wrong? Like, what else do I not get? What else is not making, like, what else have I held so true that could possibly be wrong? And it kind of sets you on like a weird little journey in self-discovery, doesn't it?
It truly, truly does. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So, well, part of actually your own self-discovery is in your practice. And your practice has shifted from where it was a couple years ago, a couple months ago, right? And that's the other thing that I definitely wanted to talk about, is because it's so unique. Because one, Weck method is somewhat unique and, well, very unique, but somewhat unheard of in pop culture and in popular reference. And you've taken that with the yoga and meshed them together in something that I think is very unique to yourself and your own practice. Oh, you're good.
Those are Legos.
Yeah.
Always good. Totally. I'm really excited to talk about this for sure. So, yeah, been teaching yoga for the last 11 years, and 10 of that has been with the athletes. So I've taken upon myself, because I've said it before and I'll say it again, the baseball players have always been my bar. If I can make the baseball players love and appreciate and buy into what I'm offering and get benefit and get better at their craft, then I'm doing my job. And for so long, I would leave the baseball players feeling like I can't reach these people. We're on two completely different levels. They don't respect me. I don't know how to access them. They don't see me as a true fitness professional or whatever. So I've always been studying and learning and doing my best to dive in and understand the sports that I work with. And when I was introduced to David Weck through a baseball person that showed me the one movement that I really fell in love with initially, which was the Royal Coil. I was like, wow, number one, this would be amazing for baseball players. Number two, I feel for the first time in years, my chronic sacroiliac joint pain dissipating. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
So I did Weck Method qualification course and became a coach in the system. One, for me, because I was getting some chronic pain relief. And two, I knew it would cross over and I could better work with my athletes. And when I went there and I met David Weck, I saw something in him that I don't think a lot of people see offhand. They see the creator of the Bosu ball. They see the leading authority when it comes to balance and locomotion. That's who they see, this really interesting fitness professional. I saw the medicine man in him. I saw the knowledge that he had in Chinese methodology that, yes, he was always referencing and talking about in his own way, but I just don't know how many people actually saw how knowledgeable he was within that regard, how he could access the meridian lines and tap into points to then use that for greater everything, mobility and functionality. So when I saw that, it lit something up inside of me, because now it was like the athletic portion of my teaching was now meeting the Chinese methodology portion that I'd been studying at PCOM and learning Tuinan, Chinese body work. So I was like, whoa, this is kind of combining those worlds. And then I started going to, and I'm super new if there's a word that like predates novice, like that's me, like before green, like that's me. But for the last 6 months, I've been working with a friend who's been practicing jiu-jitsu for 5 years. And now I've worked up the courage to go to 10th Planet. I've gone to 4 classes, 2 of them women only. And I've been learning jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu also brings in the body work part of it. I mean, it's like you slow that shit down. It's the greatest, deepest tissue massage of your entire life.
Yeah, that's true.
It feels so good when you slow
point.
it down, but also it like moves this energy and aggression like I've never experienced before. And it's, again, like you said before, it's making me question absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I went over to the jiu-jitsu world because David Weck's like martial intent. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. He's like, make your elbow sharper. I'm like, but why? And he's like, can you fucking defend yourself if someone, I'm like, but I don't need to. I'm a yoga practitioner. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just because you teach yoga and practice yoga, you think that you are exempt from someone coming up from behind you and attacking you?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I've been practicing movement for the last 15 years, but it doesn't really translate to much of anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I shouldn't say that. Like, translates into things, but it didn't translate into me feeling confident, like I could actually hold my own or take care of my child. You know, I still feel really vulnerable.
It's like that primal sense of like, like you, when you walk on the street, it's like, well, yeah, I can defend myself.
Yeah, I don't have that at all.
Yeah.
I have that at all. So Weck not only...
And that was too big for him, and he squeezed and went away.
That's so funny. And I laughed. So David not only introduced to me this idea of martial intent, which was really fascinating, but he also introduced to me, and I'll bow down at his feet for the rest of my life, is the intentions of spirals, the spiral intent in my body. And so I think what happened was when I went down there so green and novice with him as well, and I'm being taught to access my lats as core, rotational core, funnel down into the lat, and then crossing it over with yoga, but not even so much yoga, more so like the Qigong and Tai Chi things I'd learned from PCOM with Bill Helm. All of a sudden I'm accessing these spiral lines in my body, and then all of a sudden, you know, just a simple movement crosses over into a new movement. It's everything you're saying, perception is reality. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know my body could move like this. I've been saying for years to my students, stay 2 to 10 steps behind me so you can see what I'm doing and then understand it and apply it on your own. Well, now for the first time in 11 years, I'm like, if you get out ahead of me, awesome, because the spirals are just going to take you there organically. See where it just goes. And then it all comes back, because I think what happens when you access the spiral lines in your body and load right, left, lat, and you're always crossing the midline, what I have found is that it has brought me deep into the center of my skull, where the pineal gland is, where Rick Strassman, the spirit molecule DMT guy, says that's where you produce DMT.
Yeah.
So it's like I learned from him the martial intent. I learned more about myself and went inside and asked myself these questions of like, who am I really? Like, am I capable of this or that? And just got the questions flowing. And then simultaneously, the movement brought me so into the center of myself, where the physical place of non-duality, right? Like, I could go into a whole tangent about we're all bipolar, every single one of us. It just becomes a disorder when you don't embrace it.
Yeah.
Right? So I like find myself deep in the center of my skull, kind of walking around all the time in this DMT state, which you got to salute River for, because he brought it on, and then salute David Weck for, because he has taught me how to produce it indirectly within myself.
Yeah.
Thank ayahuasca for, because I felt it, whatever it is, but it has just, I feel like I've been handed a master key, and I'm trying really hard to use it very, very respectfully and humbly, and presenting it to my audience from this place that's like, let me help you restore your own intuition and intelligence.
Yeah.
Don't wait for me to move. Come to my class and gain research and develop it. And then go out and have fun. And when you come back and we're in class together, you get out in front of me, and there's a really good chance that I'll be like, everybody stop. Look at Colton. Do you see how? See how his wrist turned too and he went that way with it? That's so rad. Okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Keep going,
Okay,
you know?
I'm going back.
I'm going back in. It's like, you know, you start class and it's like, oh, I'll see you in an hour and a half, everybody. Like, we're all going in. We're going in to do our work. And you set someone up with these spirals, and People aren't going to hurt themselves in class. Now I'm questioning, it goes back to what you're saying, perception is reality. Now I'm questioning, I don't even believe in alignment. I don't believe in perfect alignment. What does that beautiful man, that Ido Portal, they're good friends, Roy Gold, whatever it is, he said something just the other day, like there's no such thing as perfect alignment. It's just improper training. And I just think that I've harped way too long for too many years on this is where your feet should be, and this is how you do this, because that's how I was taught. But none of that is real. David Coulter, who wrote the Encyclopedia of Benefits of Yoga.
Okay.
Someone wrote an encyclopedia of baseball. What are you going to say to that person? You're going to be like, how the hell do you train? How do you practice? Tell me everything.
Yeah.
So David Coulter writes the Encyclopedia of Benefits of Yoga. Christopher Wallace Harish, who's like tantric master, he says to him, what does your yoga practice look like? You wrote an encyclopedia. He says, every day for 2 hours a day, I just ecstatically dance. That's what the spirals have done for me. That's what Weck has given me.
That's incredible.
I don't align. I just flow with the spirals down into my lats and move and put my body. And I'm like, oh, damn, this is me crawling up a tree getting a coconut 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It crosses over.
It feels right. It feels good.
It feels good. And now at 34, after birthing a baby and doing all the things and teaching, the way I was teaching, which I still stand behind. Thank God it's evolved. But the chronic pain in my SI joint, it's gone. I don't have it. I don't have chronic pain anymore. My body doesn't hurt. I feel really good.
That's incredible.
So I'm going to just keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, and it's so speaking from an athlete standpoint, it's so important because that's all athletics is teaching movement. You get taught how to throw, you get taught how to swing. It's all mechanics. It's all body mechanics. And it's but you can't teach the same body mechanics to people with different bodies. My arm's going to move different than someone else's arm because of the dimensions and how our body moves and my
swing.
Why
has it evolved that way?
And because it's how the practice and it's how everybody wants structure to it. This person was successful. They have the most knowledge. So do it like they said it, so do it one way. And it's what if your body is everyone's body is moving in different ways. So what if my swing looks a little bit like that, which is different from your swing, which is different from your swing. And if you look at professional baseball, all those guys have different swings, right? Because they figured it out themselves. They had a guide. They had a guide or a coach who kind of led them that way. But all those guys have swings that are unique to their body. It's not one, which is a perfect correlation for you teaching baseball players and athletes. It's I want to teach them how to move better for themselves, right? And not just move in a certain way. And that's, everything that you just said was back to our original point that hit me so hard a couple hours ago when you said on time. That the mesh of the work you had been doing with the body work, meshing with you going and seeing David and learning about the spirals. And now that's meshing with the martial intent and jujitsu, and everything is on time for you, right when it needs to be.
And if I didn't go through the breakdowns and look at my life and question what my life would look like as I pray, get super old, crazy old, and die, none of this would have evolved the way it has.
Yeah.
I had to go through the breakdowns to break through, but now I'm calling in and not living from my limbic system conditioning in place of fear, consciously in the front of my brain and deep in my heart, and calling in experiences that are on my vibration that are going to move me forward and soften maybe the breakdown so much. That's what I'm asking for. If the universe isn't indifferent, and it is, then that's what I'm asking for.
if it does take requests, that's my request.
My request
if you
right
want
there.
to send it over. Well, I want to thank you for having me in your home and sitting down and sharing all that with. Every time I talk to you, I learn so much. I think I know what you teach and where we're at, and then...
blasted them. Elliot and swing them down, and he blows him.
That is awesome.
Oh,
Classic.
But
You
yeah.
know we're playing baseball after this.
Oh yeah. Every time I always learn something new, and that's such a cool thing to experience every time I come in and get to see you and talk and everything. So social media, where can people find you so that they can learn like I do?
Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying all of that. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud that you didn't go down the 9-to-5 road and you did tap into what would make you most happy, and you're following your passions. You're doing the work to know who you are, what you're about, and what your calling is. And I'm so proud of you. And I know there will be people in your genre and your field that do get to where I got in their 30s, and it's like, fuck, am I even living my own life, my own authentic life, or am I living someone else's, or an idea of what life should look like? And the fact that you're out in front of that so far already and not conforming, it's really powerful. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
My Instagram is ZenJen11, Jen with 2 N's, Jen double N, ZEN, ZenJen11, yeah. And then JennRichardsonYoga.com.
Yes, and that's where people can contact you, right, on your website. And
Totally, yeah. You can find my email. You can text me, whatever you like. Come get body work, Tuina, Chinese body work. Come take my class. Come get on the Weck steps. Come do spiral therapy with me. Come be a part of my community.
Yeah, just come experiment a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Find yourself a little bit. Well, thank you again. If you guys made it this far, go ahead and leave a review. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. It'd really help me out. I'd appreciate it. And until next time, peace out.